Think you know your cat? Think again. This is Furry Facts, where we dig into the weird, wonderful, and little-known truths about your feline friend. It's a quiet evening. Your cat walks past you, tail upright, tip twitching. You reach out, gently stroke their back, and just as quickly their tail starts to whip. Is it joy? Is it anger? Is it confusion? If you're like many cat lovers, you've probably asked yourself, why do cats wag their tails? And why is it so hard to tell what it actually means? Let's begin by clearing up the biggest misunderstanding of all. Most people assume tail wagging means the same thing in all animals. We've seen dogs wag their tails in happiness, excitement, and eagerness. So naturally, when a cat does something similar, we assume it's joy. But cats are not dogs. They don't communicate that way. In fact, a wagging tail in a cat often means the exact opposite of what it means in a dog. This is where the confusion begins. We misread them. We project our own understanding of body language onto an animal who speaks a completely different dialect. Unlike dogs, cats are subtle. Their communication is layered, often quiet, and incredibly nuanced. A cat's tail is more than an accessory. It's an emotional barometer, a sensory antenna, a mood ring made of muscle and instinct. Cats wag their tails not to invite you in, but to express something deeper. Something is changing, something felt but not always shown through sound or posture. It might mean irritation. It might mean excitement. It might mean uncertainty, conflict, or growing interest. But rarely, very rarely, does it mean pure, simple happiness. To understand the tail is to understand the cat. And understanding the cat means unlearning everything you thought you knew. Their tail doesn't shout. It whispers, it flicks, it warns, it reacts. When a cat wags their tail, they're not being cute. They're speaking. And the better we listen, the deeper our relationship with them becomes. In this journey, we'll go deeper into the psychology, the biology, the energy, and the mystery of tail movement. Because once you understand what a cat is truly saying with their tail, you'll never see them the same way again. A cat's tail is not just a part of its body. It's a sentence, a subtle phrase written in motion. And every flick, every twitch, every slow wave tells a different story. Unlike words, which can lie, a cat's tail is honest. It reacts before the cat even knows what it feels. It reveals what's hidden behind the eyes and buried beneath the silence. Let's begin with the gentle flick, that quick, sharp motion you might see at the very tip of the tail. It often happens when your cat is sitting still, seemingly calm, maybe gazing out the window or watching a toy. The body is still, but the tip of the tail taps against the floor like a metronome. This flick isn't random. It's the sign of a mind at work. The cat is alert, processing stimuli, watching, calculating, preparing. The flicking tip is the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. It says, "I'm interested, I'm thinking." Then there's the swish, a slower, more deliberate wave of the entire tail. It moves from side to side like a pendulum. This motion is not passive. It's a signal, a rising tide of emotion. It might be agitation, overstimulation, or growing annoyance. It's a warning not to fear but to respect. A whisper that says, "Please stop." Cats don't growl before they snap. They don't bark or shout. They move, they flick. They leave you clues. And then there's the twitch, the tiny pulse of movement near the tail's base or tip, almost like a nervous tick. It may happen when you speak to your cat or walk into the room. It's not irritation, it's intrigue. A reaction to something new, unexpected, or emotionally triggering. These twitches are like static on the emotional radio. Something is happening inside, even if the outside appears calm. It's how your cat says, "I noticed you." But perhaps the most misunderstood movement of all is the tail wrap. Sometimes a cat will wrap its tail around its own body, tucking it close like a blanket. Other times, it may wrap it around your arm or leg like a soft, living ribbon. The tail curl can mean comfort, or protection, or deep affection. It's not random, it's not automatic, it's an emotional gesture, like reaching for a friend's hand or crossing your arms when you feel exposed. In every movement, your cat is speaking to you, but you must learn to listen to motion, not noise, to respond to energy, not volume. A cat's tail doesn't wag like a dog's, it doesn't beg for attention. It offers honesty. And if you accept that offer, you begin to understand them not as pets, but as beings with rich inner lives. We often think of cats as mysterious creatures that come and go as they please, seemingly untouchable in their independence. But their tails give them away. If you want to know how a cat feels, you don't have to hear them meow, just watch the tail. Because when words fail and cats rarely use them anyway, the tail tells the truth. Start with anxiety. It rarely looks like fear in cats. There's no loud panic, no wide-eyed outburst. Instead, anxiety whispers through small changes, especially in the tail. An anxious cat may carry its tail low to the ground, close to the body, like a defensive posture. It might twitch uncontrollably, often paired with dilated pupils or flattened ears. That low, rapid movement isn't casual. It's the emotional version of someone pacing, biting their nails, or checking the door again and again. It's not aggression, it's a body bracing for uncertainty. Now, joy in a cat is far more subtle than the joyful leaps of a puppy. But it's there, and often it lives in the tail. When your cat feels truly safe, comfortable, or even blissfully relaxed, their tail may softly sway. Not in a wide arc, but in a calm, rhythmic wave. Or it might lie beside them still, barely pulsing with contentment. And then there's that curious sight, the upright tail, held high with a slight curve at the tip. This is one of the few times a cat's tail signals happiness. It's a feline greeting, a show of affection. It says, "I like you, I trust you." If your cat approaches you with tail raised, they are not demanding attention. They are offering connection. They are opening the door to emotional intimacy on their own terms. But one of the most revealing states of all is conflict. Yes, cats feel conflicted, emotionally stuck between instinct and desire, fear and affection, stillness and action. This is when you'll see the tail flick in rapid bursts, back and forth, back and forth. It could happen when you touch a spot they don't quite want you to, or when they're watching something intriguing but staying still. That tail is not just wagging, it's processing. It's the body's version of indecision. This is when respect matters most. Pushing past the tail's warning is not just about boundaries. It's about trust. A cat's tail is not a weapon or a toy. It's a barometer, a gauge, a living, moving signal of their emotional world. And once you begin to read it, you'll realize your cat has been speaking to you all along. Think of your cat's tail as a compass. At any given moment, it points toward what your cat feels, not in words or clear symbols, but in angles, curves, and stillness. It's a map of mood, and if you know how to read it, you can navigate your relationship with your cat more wisely and gently. Let's begin with the most heartwarming position of all, the upright tail. When a cat holds their tail straight up like a little flagpole, it's a sign of connection. They feel safe. They feel social. They're open to engagement, even affection. The upright tail is your cat's way of saying, "I'm here, I trust you." This is often the posture your cat adopts when they greet you at the door. They may rub against your leg, purr, or walk ahead of you, tail held high. It's not dominance, it's comfort. It's a declaration of peaceful intent. But if that tail is quivering at the top, almost vibrating, there's something even deeper happening. This isn't just happiness. It's joy, excitement, anticipation. Some call it a happy tail shiver, a dance of welcome and warmth. On the other side of the spectrum, we find the low tail, a tail that hangs close to the ground, especially if it's tucked, signals caution or anxiety. Your cat is uncertain. They may be in a new environment or sensing something they can't quite name. It's not just fear, it's alertness. It's an emotional low tide. If the tail is wrapped under the body, it could also indicate discomfort, pain, or vulnerability. This isn't a moment to call them over or reach out. It's a time to observe quietly, to offer space, and to let your presence speak calm rather than control. Then there's the arched tail, the classic Halloween silhouette. A stiff, bristled tail pointing up and out from the body. This isn't just fear, it's defense. A cat in this position feels threatened and is preparing to protect itself. The tail bristles not just to look bigger, but because adrenaline floods the system. The body reacts before the mind does. It's automatic, a flare of instinct. And yet, in between all these positions lives the curve, the soft S-shape of uncertainty or engagement. A tail curled loosely around the body can signal rest or comfort. A tail gently swaying in a curve behind them may mean curiosity. The more fluid the movement, the more open the emotion. It's the rigid, tight movements that signal distress. It's the fluid, waving curves that signal calm. And when your cat curls their tail around you, around your arm, your hand, or your leg, that's something special. That's affection expressed physically. It's as close to a cat's hug as you'll ever receive. Reading tail position isn't about memorizing meanings. It's about watching how your cat holds themselves moment to moment. How the tail shifts between states, how tension builds or softens. The tail tells a story, and that story is always changing. Cats are not confrontational by nature. They don't shout. They rarely lash out without warning. Instead, they set boundaries quietly with their body, their posture, and above all, with their tail. The tail is the first to speak when a cat needs space. And too often, humans miss the message. Picture this: you're petting your cat. At first, everything feels right. Their eyes are soft, their body relaxed, maybe even a purr beneath your hand. But then, something shifts. The tail, which had been still or gently resting, begins to flick. Not wildly, but rhythmically, like a ticking clock. This isn't just movement, it's a change in mood. It's a polite warning. Ignore that flick and the signal might escalate. The tail flick becomes a swish. The body stiffens. The ears tilt or flatten. What was once affection turns into irritation and maybe even a scratch. But here's the truth most people overlook. Cats don't want conflict. They give you signs to avoid it. When a cat uses its tail to draw a boundary, it's not pushing you away out of cruelty. It's inviting you to respect them. Think of the tail as a volume dial for comfort. And if the tail begins to puff or the whole body reacts, you've crossed a line they clearly marked. This isn't rejection, it's communication. It's your cat asking to be seen, not just touched. Cats live in a world of instincts and subtlety. They don't negotiate with words. They feel, they respond, and they show you how close they're willing to let you in. But you must learn to honor the signs. It's not just about tail flicks during petting, it's also about social dynamics. When two cats meet, they often communicate through posture and tail positioning. A high tail signals friendly approach. A low, stiff tail means caution. A fluff tail means tension. If you watch them closely, you'll notice that cats set limits without sound. Their tails negotiate space, emotional safety, and mutual respect. And when humans begin to see these silent signals, when we respond not with confusion or frustration, but with empathy, something magical happens. The cat begins to trust, because trust isn't built through force or control. It's built through listening, even when the voice is a whisper from the tail. Every cat begins its life with softness. Kittens are born blind, their eyes closed to the world. But even in those first quiet days, their tails begin to speak. At first, the tail is just a part of the body used for balance, for warmth, for curling up against a sibling or their mother. It has no meaning yet, no language. But as the kitten grows, the tail becomes something more. It evolves from simple motion to meaningful message. Watch a litter of kittens closely. You'll notice how their tails begin to mimic their emotions. The playful pounce comes with a flick of excitement. The clumsy chase brings with it a swish of delight. And when startled or scared, their tiny tails bristle, the instinctive defense built into their bones. Tail behavior, like all communication, is learned through interaction with the mother, with litter mates, with the humans they begin to trust. A mother cat is a master of tail communication. When she approaches her kittens with a raised tail, she brings comfort and calm. When her tail flicks with tension, she sets limits, corrects behavior, establishes space. Kittens mirror what they see. They begin to understand a still tail means safety. A raised tail means welcome. Through these early encounters, a cat learns the emotional vocabulary of tail movement. They learn that the tail is not just for chasing, it's for saying things they don't yet have words for. This tail-based communication extends into their early experiences with humans. If touched too roughly or overstimulated, a kitten's tail will twitch, a flash of discomfort they may not know how to express yet. If that signal is respected, the kitten feels understood. They grow into a cat who trusts touch, who doesn't need to escalate discomfort into aggression. But if that signal is ignored, if their boundaries are crossed without acknowledgement, they may learn to distrust, to bite instead of warn, to retreat instead of flick. Tail behavior in kittens is shaped not just by instinct but by experience. And the more those early messages are listened to, the more confident and communicative the adult cat becomes. When you raise a kitten or even care for a rescued one, remember, every tail flick is a chance to teach them that they are safe, that their voice matters, that their signals are worth hearing, and that's where real connection begins. When a cat walks across the room, you might first notice their elegance, the quiet grace, the feather-soft footsteps, the fluid way they seem to glide rather than step. But if you really want to understand what's happening inside them, watch the tail. The tail is never truly still. Even at rest, it's alive, a quiet extension of the cat's inner world. It responds to everything: sounds, sights, scents, feelings. And more importantly, it reveals what the cat hasn't said yet. You see, while a cat's body walks through the world, its tail translates it. A confident cat, for example, walks with a lifted tail. That upright position, often with a gentle hook at the tip, speaks of comfort and control. They know who they are, they trust the room. They don't need to defend their presence, they simply inhabit it. Now contrast that with a low, sweeping tail. A slow, cautious glide that stays near the floor. It's the sign of a cat moving through unknown territory, either physically or emotionally. They're alert, but not afraid. They're checking the ground beneath their feet, but there are times when the tail moves faster than the body. When it becomes restless, flicking from side to side with increasing speed, that's when you know something's changing inside. Maybe it's growing stress, maybe it's excitement, maybe it's irritation wrapped in curiosity. Whatever it is, the tail knows before the paws act. There's a beautiful complexity to these shifts. They aren't random, they aren't background noise. They're a real-time broadcast of a cat's emotional landscape. In moments of stillness, the tail can still tell a story. A sleeping cat whose tail gives a soft, rhythmic twitch may be dreaming. A perched cat with a slow, pulsing tail tip may be watching, hunting, calculating. A relaxed cat with a tail loosely curled around their body isn't just at rest, they're grounded. Motion is emotion. And the tail is where it shows up first. You don't need to guess what your cat feels, not if you pay attention to what moves before their meow, before their ears twitch, before their eyes shift. And perhaps most importantly, when your cat moves toward you. Tail raised, tip twitching, body fluid. You're not just being greeted, you're being trusted. Because for cats, motion is intention. They do not approach by accident. They do not move casually. Every flick, every pause, every tail curl is a choice, a communication, a truth told in silence. We like to think of body language as honest. That the tail always tells the truth, always mirrors what's happening inside. But cats, like people, are complicated. Their bodies don't always reflect one single feeling. They often feel two things at once, and in those moments, the tail can send mixed signals. Imagine this. Your cat is purring, rubbing against your legs. They want your presence, your affection. But as soon as you bend down to pet them, the tail starts to flick. Gently at first, then more firmly. You pause, confused. Aren't they happy? Aren't they enjoying this? Yes and no. What your cat may be experiencing is ambivalence. They want closeness, but also space. They want touch, but only on their terms. The tail becomes a battlefield of mixed emotions. This isn't dishonesty, it's honesty in motion. The tail isn't lying, it's showing the layers, because cats, like all sensitive beings, are often walking contradictions. They can be curious and cautious, playful and defensive, affectionate and overstimulated. It's important not to view a cat's tail as a simple yes or no. Instead, see it as a scale. A dial constantly adjusting as their environment shifts, as their feelings evolve second by second. There are also moments when a cat's tail contradicts their face or posture. They may look calm, eyes soft, body relaxed, but the tail is tense. Or they may appear alert and upright, but the tail is gently swaying in curiosity. This is where interpretation becomes an art. Not just what the tail is doing, but how it's doing it and in what context. And there are times when the tail tells you what the cat isn't ready to admit. It betrays their rising frustration before their body reacts. It reveals their comfort before they show you affection. It whispers what they're not ready to say aloud. In rare cases, especially with traumatized or previously neglected cats, the tail may be a mask. They've learned to suppress their signals to stay still, silent, unreadable. But even then, with time, the tail will return. The language will come back. The honesty will rise again through flicks, curves, soft rests against your hand. The tail doesn't always shout. Sometimes it trembles, sometimes it misleads, but it never stops trying to speak. To read a cat's tail is not to search for certainty, it's to sit with complexity. To be present with the full emotional range of another being. To accept that, like us, they are not always clear, but always worthy of being understood. It's one of the most misunderstood behaviors in cats. You call their name. You reach out, they glance at you, and then turn around, walking away with their tail raised. To some, it feels like rejection, like your cat is ignoring you, dismissing you, choosing solitude over connection. But what if it's the opposite? What if turning their back is actually the deepest form of trust? In the animal world, exposing your back is a risk. It means vulnerability. It means turning away from what you can't see, from what might harm you. Predators don't show their backs to threats. Survivors don't turn their tails to danger. They're not leaving, they're inviting you into the sacred space of trust. The raised tail in this moment becomes a banner of emotional security. It curves with familiarity, it sways with comfort. Sometimes your cat may even pause in front of you, tail high, and look over their shoulder, not to test your attention, but to offer a moment of shared energy. It's their version of eye contact with softness. They're showing you their back and checking to see if you're still there. And what about when your cat jumps onto your bed or couch, then turns their rear toward your face and curls up? Again, it's not rejection, it's the feline way of saying, you're part of my world. If they didn't trust you, they'd never let their body be that exposed. They'd never curl into sleep where they couldn't see you. Some cats even offer their tail to you like a touch. A brush of fur across your hand, a wrap around your wrist, a soft swish against your leg. That's not accidental, that's not impersonal, that's contact, that's inclusion. The tail is more than a limb, it's an offering. It's a gesture of comfort, trust, and quiet companionship. So next time your cat turns their back to you, don't feel ignored, feel chosen. They don't need to face you to love you. They need to feel safe enough not to, and when they do, the tail will say everything their eyes won't. At first glance, a sleeping cat seems to say nothing at all. Eyes closed, body curled, breath slow and steady. Stillness pure and complete, but even in sleep, the tail speaks. A cat's tail doesn't simply shut down with the rest of the body. It continues to move, to respond, to communicate, whispering truths from the quietest corners of the feline mind. Let's start with the most subtle sign. The slow, rhythmic twitch. You've seen it, your cat is sound asleep, and suddenly the tip of the tail begins to flick. Not harshly, not randomly, just softly, deliberately, like a metronome in a dream. What does it mean? Often, it signals dreaming. Yes, cats dream, and in those dreams, their bodies remember. They remember running. They remember watching. They remember the feeling. The tail, unlike the limbs or the voice, doesn't disturb the sleep. It becomes the emotional outlet of the unconscious. In deeper sleep, when the body enters a phase of full relaxation, the tail rests loosely, draped over the body or stretched alongside it. This is a sign of absolute peace. There's no tension. No guarded posture, only softness and trust. A cat that sleeps with their tail exposed, not tucked tightly beneath them, is saying, "I'm not worried." Now consider the protective curl, the tail wrapped tightly around the body, sometimes even around the nose or paws. This posture is not just about warmth, it's about boundaries. Your cat is creating a cocoon, a shell. They may still trust you, but they're not fully open. They're asking for stillness, for space, for silence. And then there are the moments just before sleep. Those transitions when the cat is drifting, not fully awake, not fully gone. That's when the tail might twitch in response to your voice, to a distant sound, to an energy shift in the room. Even as they descend into slumber, cats remain connected. The tail is their last line of awareness, their final antenna. It responds when nothing else does, and through it, they remain part of the world even as they rest. Some cats, when they truly trust you, will let their tail touch you in sleep. A soft brush across your arm, a gentle lean against your leg. This is not random. It's a connection in the quiet, its presence shared through stillness. Cats don't need to speak to love. They don't need to move to express faith. They simply allow the tail to be. Natural, honest, unguarded, and if you learn to see it, you'll realize something beautiful. Even in sleep, they are always saying something. The tail may be soft and fluid, but it is also vulnerable. It's an exposed nerve center, a balance tool, a social instrument, a sensor of space and safety. So when the tail is injured, or worse, ignored, the consequences go far beyond the physical. Let's talk first about physical trauma. A cat's tail contains vertebrae, muscles, blood vessels, and nerves that connect directly to their spine. When damaged through an accident, a fall, or a harsh tug, this delicate structure can become a source of chronic pain or even neurological issues. A drooping tail that doesn't move naturally, a limp posture after an encounter outdoors, a twitch that seems more like a spasm than a flick. These are not personality quirks, they're red flags. When the tail is injured, a cat may lose the ability to balance, to express, or even to feel in certain areas. They may become more withdrawn. They may stop using the tail to communicate, not because they don't want to, but because they physically can't. And when that channel of communication goes silent, so does part of their emotional life. Now let's shift to emotional trauma. Something less visible, but just as real. Cats who have experienced abuse, neglect, or chronic stress often display it through the tail. You might notice stiff posture, a tail that never rises above the back, or a constant curl inward, a defensive position even in safe spaces. These aren't just signs of caution, they're signs of suppression. Cats are experts at masking pain when they feel powerless, when their signals have been ignored or punished in the past. They may stop sending them. The tail becomes still, not from peace, but from resignation. And then there are the cats who seem too still. Those who never swish, never flick, never move the tail even in high-stimulus moments. These cats aren't always calm. Sometimes they're numb, But here's the good news, the tail can heal. With time, patience, and consistent kindness, many cats rediscover their voice through their tails. You'll see a timid swish return, a gentle curl during sleep, a moment of bold, upright posture when they walk across a room without fear. It may take weeks, it may take months, but when it happens, it's like a soul remembering how to speak. As guardians, we must learn to read these silences just as carefully as we read the movement. Because a tail that doesn't wag is still saying something. It's telling you, I've been hurt. So if you've ever met a cat whose tail doesn't move, don't rush them, sit near them. Breathe gently, watch for the smallest flick, the quietest sign that they still believe in being seen. Because when the tail comes back to life, so does the cat. You could spend a lifetime learning from a cat's tail and still discover something new in the way it moves. But the tail doesn't exist in isolation. It's just one thread in a larger tapestry, a silent symphony of whiskers, ears, eyes, posture, and breath. Still, the tail is special. It's the punctuation in their body language, the undercurrent of every message, the final note in the melody of feline expression. When a cat walks into a room, the first thing they announce is with their tail, before they speak, before they meow, before they purr or pull away. The tail declares how they feel. It's a status update without a sound, and it completes the sentence the rest of their body begins. Ears forward, curious, eyes wide, alert, but a tail held low and stiff. Something's not quite right. Whiskers back, anxious, body crouched, cautious, but a tail lightly flicking at the tip. Maybe not fear, maybe consideration. The tail is the bridge between body and feeling, between instinct and emotion, between what's obvious and what's only just beginning to surface. And if you want to truly understand your cat, to not just care for them but to connect with them, you must see the tail not as an afterthought, but as a doorway, because through that doorway is trust, through that doorway is presence. Through that doorway is your cat in their full, beautiful, complex truth. They don't ask for much. They don't perform for praise. They don't lie. They simply are. And through their tails, they invite you to be with them, to notice, to pause, to honor even the smallest movements as sacred. And that's where the real magic lives, not in the grand gestures, not in the Instagram tricks or the perfect cuddle. That's love, that's listening, that's the language of cats. And once you learn to speak it, you'll never look at a tail the same way again. In a world filled with noise, your cat speaks in whispers, a glance, a blink, a shift of fur and shadow, a single flick of the tail, and if you've been listening, you've heard it, you've felt it, you've understood something most people never do, because the tail remembers. It remembers the first time your hand reached out. Hesitant, unsure, and they stayed. It remembers the quiet mornings, when you moved slowly, and they followed, tail up like a little flag of trust. It remembers the storms you didn't speak of, but sat through together, your silence and theirs, braided in comfort. The tail knows who you are, it senses your moods, your energy, your truths you haven't said out loud. It flicks when you're anxious. It rests gently across your arm when you need grounding. It curls around your leg not to claim you, but to remind you you're not alone. Because we all have one, don't we? Our own silent language, our own hidden signals, our own need to be read without having to explain. Cats do that for us. They mirror back our quiet parts. They teach us how to notice the unsaid, how to honor boundaries, how to love without needing permission. So the next time your cat walks by, tail swaying like grass in a breeze, or twitching with some feeling you can't name, pause. Not to decode, not to fix, just to witness. Because when you really see a cat's tail, you're not just understanding them, you're entering the deeper art of presence itself, and in that space, soft, slow, true, you realize the tail isn't just a signal, it's a soul in motion. In a world full of noise, be like your cat, soft, curious, and quietly wise. Until next time, stay gentle. They may never speak your language, but they'll always understand your heart. Thanks for watching, and give your cat an extra blink from me.